Okay, we are about to dive into one of the most baffling, just straight up weird disappearances in the history of modern science. This is a story about the very nature of reality and about a man who might have stumbled upon a secret so huge it literally caused him to vanish from existence. So let me ask you this. Could our reality just be a kind of hologram? I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but one incredibly brilliant scientist was absolutely convinced it was true. He believed our world was an informational matrix, something our brains decode, and maybe, just maybe, something we could even learn to rewrite. And that's the absolute core of this mystery. Just when he was on the very brink of an experiment that could have turned science on its head and proved his theory to the world, he was gone. Poof. Vanished. Let's set the stage. The date is December 8th, 1994. Dr. Jacobo Grinberg, a really well-respected neurophysiologist in Mexico, simply vanishes without a trace. He was in the middle of preparing for this massive, groundbreaking experiment he thought would change everything we know about consciousness. And then, just silence. You know, to even begin to understand how a man of science could just disappear like that, we have to talk about the extraordinary woman who became his mentor, and the person who totally shattered his entire view of reality. So meet Doña Pachita. Now on paper, if you looked her up, you'd see she was a cabaret singer, sold some lottery tickets. But in reality, she was a legendary healer, a shamaness famous for performing what people called spirit surgeries that just completely defied any scientific explanation. And here's the thing. Grinberg, this trained academic, he didn't laugh at her or dismiss her. No, he studied her. He took meticulous notes, documenting her procedures, and he actually came to believe that she could manipulate the very fabric of reality, like materializing human organs out of thin air. And get this, Pachita had this bizarre reputation. Whenever the authorities would get close, trying to investigate her for practicing voodoo, she would apparently just disappear. Not for a day or two, but for years at a time, only to pop back up later like nothing happened. It's a really eerie preview of what was going to happen to Grinberg himself. So, seeing all this impossible stuff with his own eyes didn't just blow Grinberg's mind, it gave him a mission. He needed a scientific framework to explain it. And what he came up with, well, it was basically the theory behind the Matrix, long before the movie ever came out. Yeah, decades before Neo was dodging bullets, Grinberg was talking about his Synergetic Theory. The basic idea is that reality isn't the solid, objective thing out there. Nope. It's a vast, complex informational field, a sort of pre-space structure. And our brains act like decoders, creating the world that we experience every day. He broke it down like this. Imagine reality is just source code. Most of us, you and me, our brains are just code readers. We perceive the world by interpreting that code. But people like Pachita, Grinberg believed they were different. They could become code writers, able to directly access and manipulate that informational field to change reality itself. So, to prove this wasn't just some wild idea, he ran this incredible experiment. He'd get two people to meditate together and then put them in separate, completely isolated rooms. One person would be shown flashes of light. And here's the crazy part. In about 25% of the cases, the other person's brainwaves would react at the exact same moment, as if they were seeing the flashes too. It looked like a direct telepathic link. Now, as you can imagine, his colleagues in academia thought this was all just fringe nonsense. They pretty much scoffed at him. But there was another group, a much more secretive group, that was paying very, very close attention. His research was reportedly scooped up and studied by the CIA as part of their infamous Stargate project, which looked into psychic abilities for military use. Okay, so if you thought the story was bizarre already, well, buckle up. The official investigation into his disappearance is where things get even murkier, adding layers of conspiracy and just total confusion. The timeline itself is just strange from the start. He vanishes on December 8th, but nobody, not his family, not his lab, reports him missing for 4 whole days. Not until he's a no-show for his own birthday party. And then, almost exactly 1 year to the day later, his wife disappears too. So the lead investigator, a commander named Clemente Padilla, he manages to track down the only credible sighting of Grinberg after he vanished. It was in Boulder, Colorado. A witness said Grinberg was with a man and a woman. So Padilla calls a contact he has at the CIA, describes the two people, and his contact immediately identifies them by name and confirms that, yes, they were both CIA agents. So Padilla thinks he just blew the case wide open, right? This is huge. But as soon as he reports this bombshell finding back to his superiors in Mexico, bam, he's immediately taken off the case. And a little while later, the entire official file on Jacobo Grinberg's disappearance is declared lost. Gone. So while this whole government conspiracy angle is swirling, suspicion also starts to fall really heavily on his second wife, Teresa. Friends said Grinberg had told them she was torturing him mentally. People discovered her academic degrees seemed to be fake. She kept giving conflicting stories about where he was. And then, a year after he was gone, she vanished too. So here we are, nearly 30 years later. We have no body, no real answers, and in that vacuum of information, a few very compelling theories have really taken root. The four main theories really cover all the bases. Was he abducted by the CIA because his research was getting too real? Was he silenced by the Mexican government for some reason? Was it a simple domestic crime? Did his wife murder him? Or did he stage the whole thing, knowing the mystery would make his ideas immortal? But then, there's one more possibility. One final, far more incredible theory. One that actually ties everything together. His research, his shaman mentor, and the very act of disappearing itself. Remember how Pachita could just vanish whenever the authorities got close? Well, this final theory suggests she wasn't just hiding. It suggests she taught Grinberg her ultimate technique, how to consciously and deliberately step outside of the informational matrix that we all call reality. Now, it is really important to state there is no hard scientific proof for any of this. To this day, every attempt by modern scientists to replicate his brainwave experiments has failed, and that leaves his entire life's work sitting firmly in the realm of fringe science. So without a body, without a clear motive, and without any proof of his theories, what are we actually left with? Well, maybe the most poetic and profound twist in this entire unbelievable story.
In the end, the very absence of Jacobo Grinberg has become the most compelling, and maybe the only, evidence for his extraordinary claims. His disappearance itself is the one unsolved experiment, forcing all of us to wonder if he didn't just vanish from the world, but maybe, just maybe, he proved his own point by vanishing from reality.